And we are live.
We are live. Hello, everybody. All of you thousands and thousands of
Thousands upon
people that are
thousands.
here with us today. Welcome to Table Talk RPG, the show where we talk about RPGs.
Yeah, I'm
It's
doing
very
the Twitter.
descriptive.
I'm doing the Twitter thing. So let
There we
me.
go. So Ghost is doing the Twitter thing while he's doing his social media interactions. There, I'm going to welcome all of you to our humble space where we just take a minute or so to kind of um, digest some of the stuff that we continuously talk about in our Discord server, for which you will see a link somewhere around here, somewhere, right? I don't even know where we are.
Down
It's
there,
somewhere around.
somewhere
We're
in the
gonna see
Twitch.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So anywho, welcome everybody. Today, I actually have some news for everyone, and I'm certainly going to disappoint so many people. Started with Ghost, and all of the people with whom I've spoken about RPGs throughout my entire hobby life. Um, and guess what, Ghost? I'm actually doing a bit of a gaming transition.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Going through a bit of a gaming transformation. I'm going to show you a little slideshow. I'm going to show you a little slideshow here
Don't do
of
it.
of
Don't.
what of what
Is it
gaming has been for me. Now,
gonna be on the
this is not
stream though?
indicative. What was that?
Is it gonna be on the stream or is it gonna
It's
be?
it's gonna be on the stream. I'm about to show it public. I'm gonna go public with this,
No,
I
but here's
guess.
the thing. It's gonna mess up everything if you do.
No. I'm not gonna stream. It'll be on camera. Like it'll be on.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
Got it.
Don't
Got it.
worry.
Got
It's
it.
not
Got
gonna
it. Got
mess
it.
our
Okay.
little
I was gonna be
great
like,
hangout
man,
that we have here.
I just fixed this. Damn it.
No. It's. I'm not gonna add a new window. But actually, the first thing. This is show and tell, by the way, guys. Today we have show and tell here at Table Talk RPG. But something that you guys may not be aware of is that Ghost and I we started, even though we didn't know each other then, but we started with fourth edition, didn't we?
Yes. I did start with fourth
I
edition.
I mean, I think that through video, I don't know if it counts though, but through video games, could you say, like, for example, I played I'm trying to remember the name of that game. Icewind Dale. You know, I did that series game
Yeah,
Icewind Dale, and
yeah.
then but there
Neverwinter.
was there was
Yeah.
Neverwinter. Yeah,
Hmm.
those actually, the underlying system were actually, I believe, um probably 2.0. I think it was D&D
Was
2.0,
it
and then
AD&D?
I know that Icewind Dale was, I think Icewind Dale was 3.5.
Okay.
um but it was, the underlying system was actually a D20 system that was based on D&D.
Mhm.
Know if that counts as me saying I played third edition or second edition. I don't think it does, because I think I'm gonna have like the Grognard police just kind of like knocking on my door and say, no, you don't get to say that. So I'm gonna be respectful and say no. I actually technically started my tabletop hobby career
Traditional tabletop
with,
hobby.
yeah,
Yeah.
with traditional tabletop RPG career with D&D fourth edition, and the hook was simple. The hook was, yeah, listen, we have this thing that we're playing, and I'm like, I can't because I'm playing World of Warcraft right now. It's like, no, it's like World of Warcraft but on the tabletop, and I was like, when do we meet? So I showed up, and it's just like that. It was, as you know, when I started researching and kind of going back into what it all was, then I realized that it was true that fourth edition was probably the closest to like an MMO type thing, which is what
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
like made some people upset. Some other people
Yeah.
liked it. I
Yeah.
think it was brilliant. Now that I know a bit more, now that I've played other editions and I know now, I think fourth edition was fine. But of course, a
Yeah.
lot of people that came from third
That's a
edition,
very controversial statement right there. I'm just
it is
saying.
a controversial. I know. We're about to lose so many viewers, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but the fact is that I really thoroughly enjoyed fourth edition. Played about two or three full campaigns, month long campaigns, and that was a lot of fun. And then after that, so I'm gonna show here the
Ah.
player's handbook. It's my show and tell, but it's not. By the way, this was lent to me by my DM. I'm gonna be playing fifth edition soon, uh, and yeah, so I transitioned from that into next
So
in our show. I
basically,
transitioned into this. I
so
moved to this fake core.
basically all the street cred that we had built up it's just going to be out the window right
I
now.
know, but we love everybody. We love people that like fifth edition, and I'm gonna be playing fifth edition. This, I think we already had a session 0, and I think we're going to be playing our first, session 1. I think it's coming this week. Probably, well, not next week. Depends on where you're watching. If you're watching us on Twitch, then it's happening
Mhm.
next week. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's likely happening this week, or it happened the week before, or it happened the week before. Or if you are some alien from like we're in century 3000, like on the year 3050, and you're looking back at old Earth archives and you're seeing this video, then I played fifth edition a long time ago. Now, after Fate, I kind of evolved a little bit, and now my thing now, my big thing is this dude right here, this Savage Worlds. It's my current thing. I'm loving what I'm reading. We ran Savage
Yeah,
Worlds once.
yeah, yeah.
We enjoyed it thoroughly. We had some issues, technical issues.
Technical issues more so than actual
Yeah,
system issues. There was nothing
yeah,
wrong with the system. System what it's meant to do, it does it well.
it
Uh,
does very well.
yeah, and it's a unique, it's a dice pool, right? But it's still a unique system. It's different enough that it'll hook you. It can be run with minis, or it can be run theater of the mind. It'll play both very well.
Yep,
It is a game. It is not a storytelling engine, which is very important to note.
yep.
But it's a fun game. I like Savage
Which
World.
is
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting if we think about it. When we think of a narrative game, right? And I don't know if you'll agree with this. But when we think of a narrative game, um, the word game, right? It kind of feels a little like it's a little tug of war there between one thing and the other, because in fact, you could easily play a narrative story and not even like roll dice, or you could just dedicate entire session, 2 sessions, probably entire adventure, to just people very well giving each other enough spotlight and giving each other a space to narrate. And I think that's key. So let's talk a little bit about narrative games. The sole driver behind a narrative experience needing some kind of mechanical basis, in my opinion, is in order to allow everyone to have an equal space to shine. So if I don't have mechanics under what I'm doing narratively, then I can just sit there and then just narrate that my character starts running after the bad guy jumps over the ridge and then does 4 flips, lands, grabs the bad guy by the collar and shakes them until he gets the MacGuffin and says, "Ah, I have it
What?
now." And then the GM is like, "Okay, but when do you stop?" Right? So if I don't have that self control, then I need something to control how much I can do in
Mm-hmm.
that narrative
Yeah.
game, and that's where the
Yeah.
rules come in, right? Do you agree with that, Ghost?
Yes, I do. I do agree with that. Also, if you're just gonna sit there and narrate, right, then the these are our conversations, right? So if you
Yeah,
just sit there and narrate, there is no game, right? There is to me, right? This is a very personal opinion,
it's
and
a very
again,
Ghost opinion.
very is my opinion. Of course, first of all, we gotta do a disclaimer, right? No affiliation for any of the games that we just talked about.
None, none.
We're not nobody's sponsoring us. We're just doing this because we want to. All right, cool.
Mhm.
Next page. So if you're just gonna narrate and you're just gonna storytell, because I know there is a game, Swords Without Master, right? That's a game that you
Oh
keep
yeah, I
narrating until,
experienced it.
yeah, until somebody else steps in and does something else, right? So would you really call that a game, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I think that we have this idea that if you are doing something that detaches you from reality, and in that thing you have some kind of agency, we call it a game immediately, right? Like if we think I am playing make believe, just the word itself, I am playing make believe with this or that we kind of associate it with a game, and we think, well, I am going to do something that is not part of reality or the real thing or the real world in which I live. It's just a game. It's just, well, there we go. It's just an experience of the imagination, and I'm going to share some of the things that I'm imagining with some other friends who are also imagining things that are related to the things I'm imagining. If what we do is call that a game because within that there seems to be some kind of agency that allows me to control in a way
Yeah.
what's happening.
So I agree, but I have to disagree, right?
Of
Um,
course. What would we have if you didn't?
so my thing is, so I come from a more board game background first. So I did a lot of board games. Well, I still do. I love board games, right? I think almost as equally as RPGs. But coming from a board game first mindset, um, a lot of people have the mentality, a lot of players, and a lot of GMs too have the mentality of like a game is where you have a specific structure of rules that you have to follow in order to achieve something, and usually what you achieve is either a win or lose scenario, right?
Right.
And so when you come from that mindset of saying, hey, you look at you might have people look at RPGs and say, hey, how do I win? How do I lose? Right?
Yep.
And when you eventually evolve from that and say, hey, this I'm not here to win or lose, but I am here to play a game. I want to tell a story, but I also want to play a game. Now, making that distinction, some systems do it better than others. Um, but some systems blur the line of storytelling and playing a game to the point where eventually the game takes a backseat to what's going on, and then in others where the story simply takes a backseat as well. So I think both have merit. Both, whoever likes both, whoever likes one or the other is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying anything's wrong with it, but having a balance between having a group that understands, hey, we're here to play a game, we're not here just to tell a story, right? Then also the other way around is the other point of view, other perspective is, hey, we're here to tell a story. We're just using the game to kind of break up the pace and roll some dice because, hey, I spent, probably dozens of dollars of these little things that I want to like math cubes, what they
Only
call.
dozens only.
Hey man, I'm so yeah,
Yeah.
so we spend money on these things and we want to use them, right? Because I spend money on all these games. I still haven't used my fake dice in like actual real game.
Yeah, that's my fault. The fact that you haven't used your fate dice is my fault. It's true. Yeah, I haven't run Fading Forever, and now I'm gonna be running Savage World. So who knows?
Oh, we are actually somebody came in the chat and we
Hey,
have the
hello, person
honor
from chat.
we have the honor of entertaining Mr. John Harper.
Oh, welcome, Mr. Harper. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Welcome to our
So
humble
So
space
he
here.
says, I enjoyed fourth edition too. See, there we go. We're not the only one.
There we go. There we go. So actually, what you just mentioned, I'm going to be a bit more not
Mhm,
controversial, but I'm going to expand on what you said regarding balance.
mhm.
And I like to do that using the example of video games, right? So you and I are fans of the Metal Gear series. You know the
Yes.
Metal. Oh, absolutely. We're
Yes.
not affiliated with Kojima Productions,
Yeah,
just to
we're
say.
not. We're not. Nor
Yeah.
Sony, nor all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if we think of Metal Gear, we know that there is a healthy and some might even say unhealthy amount of cutscenes in between the points in where you're actually
Yeah.
doing something with your character, right? Um, but there is a very, very good amount of mechanics when you are actually controlling your
Mhm,
dude.
mhm.
I mean, it's mechanically interesting to sneak around and to do the things that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Solid Snake did. But then you go and have 2 hours of cutscene, and then you're exhausted from that. And I think that is, and that game's masterpiece, right? But then you have other games where you have just a little too much bloat in the backstory, cutscenes, setting everything. But then when it comes to the mechanics are just a little too bland or a little boring, a little whatever. And then you're just playing the game just to get through to the
So
story.
yes, that is very true. So we'll talk about
Yeah,
no affiliation. Last of Us. Last of
Last
Us
of Us,
is an amazing game. First one, second part, both of them. It's an amazing
for
video game.
sure.
But I played it once, did not play it again, because there is only one story and the story was so good, but the mechanics, I just wanted to stop playing, actually playing, so I could
So
see
that
what would happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, I
Exactly.
totally
Yeah.
get.
And
I totally get
and then we have the other side with which you have games that are absolute mechanical masterpieces,
that. Hmm.
but then you don't have enough of a story going on to motivate that mechanic, or you don't have enough of a they don't explore certain characters. This kind
Hmm.
you kind of feel it's a missed opportunity to explore certain things. So when do we feel best when it comes to video games? At least for me, I feel best when I have a good mix of both, which I think you and I agree. Mass Effect is
Oh,
one of those that does it
jeez. Oh,
wonderfully.
it's
The
coming out.
Dragon Age
Couple weeks.
series,
Couple weeks. Mass Effect
yep, I
Legendary
know,
Edition.
Legendary Edition coming out. There's a game called Dragon's Dogma, I think it
Dragon's
was, which was
Dogma. Yep.
brilliant.
Hmm.
I have it on Nintendo Switch. I bought the remake they did for Nintendo Switch. I love it. So again, I feel, and that's why I'm kind of going into that
Hmm.
Savage World space. That I have come to terms with the idea that even though I am enamored by the idea of narrative games, I actually need some mechanical heft.
Yeah.
And on that note, I feel that, and I shared this with you, off camera, but I'm gonna share it here for the purpose of the people who may listen to this, whether now or later in YouTube. Um, when you have a narrative game, you have a narrative in need of structure, which the system in question will provide. And one of the things that is actually not a bad thing, is a good thing, but it's a very specific thing to the genre, is the idea of fiction first, right? Where I say, what do you want to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
fictionally?
Hmm.
And then we find the mechanics that
Yep.
fit it. I'm
Yep.
almost quoting Fate on this, which is the granddaddy of many of the other games that kind of have come out with the same, same vein. Is oh, what do you do? And then you suddenly, like, you're frozen. And you're like, I don't know, wait, what can I do? You look at your character, you don't even need to look at your characters. You just tell me what you want. You're
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go and run after the dude. I'm gonna do this thing, right? I don't know if I can or not because I'm used to fifth edition or I'm used to fourth edition, whatever. I don't know if I can run or whatever. And then it's like, yeah, so you run there. Yeah. So what do you do? So wait, I'm not gonna roll. No, no, you run there. Okay, okay. I want to knock. I want to break down the door. Oh, okay. So you're trying to overcome the security of the. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then you start finding the mechanic. You go and look into
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
mechanic
Hmm.
allows you to do that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So the problem with that is, and I'm going to call it problem because I want to be controversial. The problem with that is that that takes either a good amount of system mastery or a good, a solid idea that you have the permission to make rulings, which a lot of these games give you, and that's beautiful. They say, rulings, not rules. Go ahead and make adjudicate, and then you can go and consult to see if there was a better mechanic, so that the pacing doesn't die. That's nice. That's beautiful. I love it, and I think it's great for the people who enjoy that genre. I myself do and did for a
Hmm.
while. But the fact is that when you have a narrative that requires creativity in the application of the rule, then you have double the cognitive load in terms of creativity. You have the cognitive load of building that story, but then you also have the cognitive load of building the mechanic that you will need to propel that story. Now, that's not the case for every narrative game out there, but I'll tell you, the
Hmm.
more rules light a game is, the more you need that. If you have a more traditional game, however, then you already have a mechanical foundation that is there. It's fixed. You don't need to spend a lot of cognitive RAM, as I call it, into building the mechanic at the moment. Yes, you may need to consult. You may need some time to go consult, but it's written somewhere, and the way that it should be done is somewhere already. So you don't need to spend that kind of creative juice trying to become a game designer on the spot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that there are systems where you have a very simple resolution mechanic, and you go, yeah, you can take that same resolution mechanic and you can solve vehicle scenes, you can
You can
resolve
do
mass
everything. You
battle
can do
scenes,
everything with it. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want with that, and I get it, and that's good. But if you want to provide a more unique experience for one of those scenes,
Yeah.
then you have to do some on the fly game design, don't you?
So,
Right?
so that's the thing. You talked about a couple of things. So narrative, mechanics. So that is different when you talk about playing a good game or playing a game. It's a different when you're playing an experience, right? Because uh, both narration, be it from the players or the GM or the story or whatever, and the mechanics both have to coexist in a very good, I don't know, plane, I guess. I don't know. I'm being very,
Symbiosis.
yeah, that's that. They have
It's a
to work
big
well.
word. I don't know if that word is correct, by the way. I don't. I hope somebody corrects me, but
Okay.
symbiosis.
So by the way, our third host actually is in the chat, and
Yay! Hey, why are you
so
not here? It's okay. That's okay. That's
that's all
okay.
right. All right. Do you want to join us? We can do it. I don't. If we
It's
met
okay.
this
Hey,
good.
Savi.
Yeah. Hey, Savvy. So yeah. Anyway. So what I was doing. So they have to coexist very well in order to provide the experience. She wants to be let in. All right. So let.
Uh, to those of you, we're not being cruel. We just, Savi. She'll explain, I guess.
She
But
did. She put it in the chat. She put it for like 30 minutes late, her alarm. But
it's okay.
I
We
told
we
you she was
respect
asleep. She
everyone's.
was asleep. I told you that.
Okay, we respect everyone's freedom, and this is a it's just
So
something we do for
yeah,
funsies.
let me change that real quick, and then so Savvy, if you won't mind joining on Discord, and then I'll switch over the scene so that way all three of us are on the
Hmm.
thing. But yes,
Yeah, let's fill in this
yeah,
empty
yeah,
space
let's
with
play this
something.
empty space, right? So what I was saying is they have to work together to provide the experience, right? The
Yeah.
experience you want to provide, because it's not the same thing as I want to play a game, at least for me, right? As a GM, I want to every time my players sit down on my table, whoever they are, they could be new, it could be a one shot, it could be a campaign. I want them to have an experience, and it sometimes is hard to do, sometimes it's not. It just depends. Um,
Hmm.
let me switch over. Hey, and there we
Hey,
go.
Savi. Savi's here. She's awake. Hopefully.
Yeah, I need to change the text. Give me 1 second. Um,
That's okay. I'm actually going to say something to what you're saying that isn't. It's not a disagreement, but it may feel like it is. I
mhm.
hope you take it as a disagreement, so it'll
Yeah,
spark more fighting.
yeah, of course. Shoot.
Um, but to what you're saying, which I very much agree with. Don't get me wrong. But the fact is that I would probably say that for someone who really understands narrative games, they will tell you that through the narration, through the fiction, through the story building that the table could create, regardless of system, they can, in fact, provide that experience in the same way that a very gifted storyteller would. Um, and I don't think I disagree with them. The problem is that we go back to what we spoke about. But is it a game? Is there, what's at stake? And here's a problem I have, which is I myself have said this before, which is why I feel this is the show where I'm going to betray everyone who ever trusted my opinion on anything about games. They're gonna go, but you said something completely different the other day. Yes, I agree with you. But the fact that um, you can say something like, well, in the narrative game, the idea you win by making a great story regardless of what your character ends up, if your character dies or your character lives, which, by the way, I actually also do agree that death is probably the least fun outcome in any situation, except for maybe some. But the fact is that some people would argue that they would say, well, the experience is what, like, not the experience. Sorry, that's what you were saying. But the story, as long as you build a great story, which we can do not fully narratively, without mechanics, as long as you have that, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose. Which, again, everybody who has played a solid, good con dungeon crawl is gonna like scream right now and say, "What?" Because that's the thing for dungeon crawls and for games that are more, well, gamey. There is such a concept as, yes, I win if I survive,
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
I
I,
lose if
I
I
beat the
die, right?
dungeon. Yeah.
Yeah, so I beat I beat the challenge. I beat the puzzle, right? Um, so I think that we were onto something. Maybe we're wrong. We hope we are, so that people will come into our channel
Oh
and
yeah.
argue.
Of course.
But the fact is that I think we need to revise the wording and the expectation, because when we go out there to buy a game, if I'm going to go visit DTRPG, not affiliated, or we go to our local friendly local game store, and we say, I'm going to buy a game, then I should be buying a game. But when you grab some of these things, you're like, no, what you're buying is a script, not a script, maybe an engine that will allow you to tell stories with your friends that everyone's going to enjoy, which is a beautiful, good time. Don't get me wrong. But should we call it a game?
Hmm.
right? I think we agree on that.
So, Savvy, what about you? What do you think
Savvy,
about?
what do you think? And you better agree with one of us.
I am trying to track with are we're talking about what constitutes a game?
We're talking about
Talk
the
about a lot
fact
of
that
things.
I
We're talking
am
about a
going
lot.
back on my love for narrative games
Yes.
because now I'm finding rekindling my appreciation for more traditional, mechanically defined systems,
Yeah,
and I
so
am
so what, what
betraying
we're
everyone.
we're talking about is basically when you have a game and we can use narrative games like PBTA and Fate and those games, even Cortex to some extent. And since we have Mr. John Harper, designer of Blades in the Dark, that is also another type of game
The
like
honorable.
that. We we tend to have these games that tell amazing stories. Also, you have to have a group that agrees to that, a group that is into that kind of stuff.
Right.
But at some point, when does it becomes a storytelling experience or an exercise instead of an actual game? So
Okay, so I have an
Savvy has an
opinion on
opinion.
this.
yeah, there we go.
All right, bring it.
Okay. It the clear distinction between because I got into like the philosophy of this stuff whenever I was discussing play by post
Okay.
stuff with whoever I was discussing that with at the time in our server. Um this week's been a blur. Anyways, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm familiar with play by post. I used to do it like in my youth. Believe it or not, I am not still in my youth. Um, Whenever I was like 11 years old, I was claiming like I did these play by post things, but now I realize after you guys Ghost, I guess you sent a couple of links to some play by post specific stuff,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and people
Not
are taking
affiliated. Yeah.
actual systems
Hmm.
and then just converting them into an elongated format, time format, and you play like by post. Well, I would play by post, but there would be no system. It would consist of there would be a theme, there would be like a theme and a genre and like a
Hmm.
tone.
Hmm.
For example, I was big into vampires, okay? Don't judge me. It was like True Blood was going on and it was big into that. So,
And
and
what topic
people
was your Sears?
right. And people would like throw up PHP boards and say,
Yeah.
okay, it is like modern time, 2000 era. You can play a vampire, and then you just like you make your character, and then you just post what the character's doing and then somebody responds and you create a story with that person and then it all interconnects and it webs out blah blah blah.
Hmm.
Anyways, I was
You were role playing though. You
huge
were role
You were
playing.
role
and
playing,
it was real
yes.
playing,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
was it a game? No, it
There
wasn't
we
a
go.
game.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was no dice. Everything had to do with what we wanted to get out of the
Hmm.
story.
Hmm.
There was no like unknown aspect of what would happen because me and my friends would go onto like MSN Messenger and be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna make the story. Blah blah blah. We planned it all. It's like I called it collaborative storytelling.
Yep.
Which is
It's fine.
fine. I think
It's
that's
fine.
it's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing. It's a
And
wonderful
so,
thing.
but I would not call that a game. Now, what I define as a game is something where the outcome is not in your hands like 100%. We can play, which is where dice
Hmm.
introduce
Yeah,
like a
just a
sort of
random factor.
randomness.
Random factor.
But
Yeah,
that's softened by the meta currency, which is another thing that we need to talk about. Meta currency then softens that blow a little bit because then you get to sway the story in your, you get to
sure,
defy the dice, right? You get to say the dice are
sure.
no longer cruel. I can beat the dice whenever I wish,
Not whenever you wish, whenever you have the meta
whenever I
currency
have the
to
money to wish
do
it.
so. So
Yeah.
that is what makes it a game to me is the fact that
Right.
there is random and it's not
So
just you telling a story around a campfire.
yes, but here's
It's
my counter argument to that.
So wait, your counter argument that means that you do feel it's a game?
No, 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 no. That the dice makes it a
Oh, that the dice makes it a game.
but
Go on.
there are systems like that when you start playing the game or the story, whatever it is,
The experience.
the experience. Do in some systems when you read them, do you actually need the rules? Do you
Which system?
actually need the dice? And let's take the biggest of them all, which is PBTA. Do you actually need the dice to play the game?
It depends on what you want to get out of it. Because the point of PBTA is to fail, but you only fail if you roll a certain number on the dice. And if you just decide to get rid of the dice altogether, then you're just creating another
Well,
story and
yes,
you're creating it the way
but
that you want it to go.
if you have a group that you set up the expectations and then they say no no no, I want to fail because X Y C blah blah blah, it will make things more interesting or something like that, then at that point, oh, I think it would make better if this doesn't happen because blah blah blah, then why would you need the dice at that point? Okay, you know what I mean?
Because why would you for any game?
So
I
because
mean, at the risk,
some games have an actual structure that is not just on what you do and how you do it. There's a simple rules and structure to how you do those actions.
microscope, I think is that's the story building, right?
Yeah,
Microscope is the name,
Microsoft.
and then
Yep.
Kingdoms was
Yeah,
also
Kingdom.
brilliant. These are brilliant games
Mhm.
defined as games. There's not a single dice roll.
Yeah.
I think that's the point that Ghost is trying to make.
Yeah.
But I think Amber Diceless, as the name suggests.
Actually, it's a game too, but I'm like,
Yeah,
is
but
it?
so here's the thing. Here's the thing. In order to like kind of like the detangle this kind of place where we're at right now, is is there, and let me again be controversial, is there a commercial reason why we continue tying the word game to things that probably
Yes.
shouldn't carry it? And
Yes.
that's I think where
Yes.
the problem is, which is
Mhm.
if I'm going to sell a thing and I'm going to sell something, I need some kind of touchstone so people know what they're buying. I go, yeah, it's just like D&D, but blah blah blah. Or yeah, it's just like Fate, but blah blah blah. Or yeah, it's just like this, but blah blah blah. So you need to tie it to something so that people will go, oh, this is a product that I would like to consume. However, if you go ahead and say, hey, I just came across this thing called a storytelling experience, role playing engine thing.
Mhm.
I don't know what that is. I'm not buying it unless somebody like invited me once and it was whatever. The point I'm trying to make is that I wonder whether it's something that is more commercially motivated to keep that legacy title to say this is a role playing
Yep.
game,
Yep.
even though it isn't
So,
a game.
so we do have a comment by Mr. John Harper. He says,
Please.
yeah,
He said,
that's
I
fine.
haven't read it, but I can probably say, Axial, please shut up.
No, so he said it's not a real game. The quote, "It's not a real game," has been used historically to bully new designers, so it's a phrase that doesn't sit well with me, well with him. Narrative games are games, in his opinion, also play-by-post, parlor games, word games, children's make-believe games, etc. The systems might be hard to see if you're used to explicit systems, but they're still there and interesting to parse out. So, and he says it's just his opinion, not to be authoritative.
No,
I don't know how to say that
But
but I think it's
structured everything.
not only is it fair, it's coming from someone who likely knows way more about this than any of us do. But the fact is, which is why it's very important to listen to. And
word.
I feel Mr. Harper just brought up a wonderful point in the sense of are we at risk of gatekeeping
Yeah,
and saying things that are more
I feel
harmful
like,
than
yeah.
positive to the hobby,
And
which is
I
very
and
true.
I also say, why do we care if it's one way or the
I
another?
don't. I don't. I
Why are
mean,
we talking about this? I know you guys get
Actually, no,
passionate
we
about
are
stuff,
talking about it. No, no, we
but
are
I'm
talking
like,
about it.
why
I
does
th-
it matter?
no, I know. I think I'm talking about it particularly because I think for me it's a matter of expectation, right? If I'm
all
about
about
to do
expectations.
something that I'm going to dedicate some time to, I would like for that thing to be well defined. So if I am about to get into an experience with a group and I am aware of what that experience will do for me, then I will be more willing to part with my precious 2 hours of my day, 3 or 4 hours, if I know what I'm getting into. And I will use as an example a friend, a very good friend, who we've kind of gone separate ways, but hopefully we'll get to play again in the future. Invited me to play Swords Without Master once,
Yeah.
and this person said, "Let's play this game. Let's get this. It's an RPG. It's a role playing game." And then we got into it. Look, the experience was brilliant. It was masterful. It was wonderful. I enjoyed every minute of it. Don't get me wrong. But it was completely the opposite of what I expected it to be. Thankfully, it happened to be a good experience, but it wasn't what I signed up for
Mhm.
at all. And
Okay,
I had
yeah,
already
I've
separated that
experienced
time.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
and
So
it's a bummer. It's a huge bummer
that's the
whenever it doesn't go
thing.
down. So I hear you.
So I had a good
Uh,
time, but I'll be
yeah,
completely honest. I'm not exactly certain that if I would have known that and then I
I
would
would
have been
have
invited, I
been.
would have been like, hey, I'm in. I probably would
Yeah.
have said, no, I'm kind of busy that day.
And in my experience, I would have been like, I'm out. Like that's not which
Yeah.
I tried.
Call me again.
So, so basically we're saying, yeah, we're not gatekeeping. We love all games, and I played my share of
Yeah.
PBTA games. Dungeon World when it came out, I played that game till death. I guess I don't know till it was I murdered it. I played it. I ran it. It was awesome. But as I played it more, and then I discovered other games like ICRPG, right, which has a little bit more meat to it in the sense of mechanics wise, and that's my expectations when I play a game. I want there to be a little bit more involved on the mechanics side, just not just a core resolution, but for there to be more things besides that. um, and that's why I kind of stepped away a little bit from the PBTA scene, because it was just the 2d6 and that was it. And so, because there are more games like Savage Worlds and even fifth edition. If somebody invites me to play fifth edition, I'll play fifth edition. It's fine.
I am.
Yeah, he is.
I am. Yeah.
Mm.
Actually, I want to bring something, and I know I shouldn't. I apologize to everyone out there who may think we're talking about RPGs. Don't bring video games into it. But you will remember a video game called The Order 1886. Do you remember that game, Ghost?
I've never played it, but I
PlayStation.
know what it is. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Right.
it's
I
like
had a
kind of like
friend who
space
did.
politician. Yeah.
I didn't play it either. I had a friend who did, who went through that exact same thing. They said, "Oh, I'm gonna get this game." They got the game, and then the game was more cinematic and
I was
storyline.
just about to say, was it one of those where you clicked a few things and then were
And then
taking a
everything
cutscene
else
that
was
lasted 30 minutes?
yes, and then
Another one is
yep,
oh sorry. Okay, yeah, we're not talking about it. But there's a beautiful one that I'm gonna mention because I just think
No
it's
no,
affiliation. No
that's the
affiliation.
thing. And then you have another game called Flower, if you remember that game.
Yeah.
That game was almost entirely and Ico. Remember Ico? ICO?
Oh,
Ico?
I remember that one.
These are masterpieces which are completely mechanical,
Yeah.
and
No
then you kind
story
of
here
like
and there. Yeah.
absorb the story. You kind of absorb
uh
through osmosis. You kind of
Sin
absorb the story.
sorry, I just have to plug it because
Yeah.
it is a masterpiece. It's called Sinua's Sacrifice, and it
I don't
is
know that one.
beautiful. You should
Okay.
go
Okay.
look it up,
Yeah.
play it. But it's definitely one of those where go do a little puzzle, and
Yeah.
then suddenly you're taken into this like experience. It's
Yeah.
definitely an experience. Um,
So for me, the
so
way that I translate that into tabletop RPG is like if I, for example, if I'm looking to provide a game experience for my players, if I want to play something that has kind of like the trappings
Hmm.
of a game,
Hmm.
I will more often than not go into a system like Fifth, like Pathfinder, like Savage Worlds, ICRPG, and so on and so forth. If I am trying to bring maybe role play an experience. If I want to role play a particular scenario, then I will go to a game like Fate or maybe something like some PBTA things or maybe some other newer things that I may not be familiar with. And I don't think these two things need to compete. I mean, these two ideas. I don't think that it's one is better than the other. I'm not saying that, but I would at least propose that is better defined maybe if that's even necessary, because maybe Sabi has a point. Maybe what is the point of talking about all this besides just having something to talk about?
It's like John Harper said, it's like they're all games.
Yeah,
It's
they're
a
all
Well,
game.
game.
They're
If
all
you
games.
are
Yeah.
if you are doing something with your leisurely time and it involves a product that somebody else has created,
Mhm.
well, that's a little broad. Either way,
So it's just the
a
thing
game's
is,
a game, whether you flip a coin or pull something out of a Jenga tower to determine an outcome, or you gotta roll, what is it, like some people gotta roll like 50 dice for some systems that
that
CJ
will
was telling me
that
about.
will not be named. I'm just.
And I don't know what system that is, but I heard about it. I said I'm out. Like
Yeah.
the complexity doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I
So I
love,
think.
I love, I love how Savi just kind of like brought like order and
I
logic
know, I know.
and a
That's
good
what I'm here.
sensible point.
Yeah. So the
So
thing is, it's based on people's experiences, right? Because my background is board games before tabletop RPGs,
And you've
right?
talked about Gloomhaven. I have heard
Oh, I
Gloomhaven
love
is
Gloomhaven. I
a
love it. It is
extremely
the
mechanically
oh,
intricate
it is
game.
so mechanically intricate and so difficult to understand on your first game. But once you figure it out, it is beautiful. Like
And now go and compare that to how about Trouble? You pop the thing in the middle, it rolls your
I
dice,
like how
you
you're
move
comparing
your
Gloomhaven to
token.
Trouble. That's awesome.
Okay. Like Trouble's no less of a game just because
Yeah.
it's way more
So
simple,
and that's the
right?
definition of a board game. A board game is because the definition is there are rules, but the outcome is you either win or you lose. It's
Okay.
black or white. That is it. Now the only thing about RPGs, there is no win or lose. So how do you define that it's a game? Is it because of the system? Is it because of the mechanics? Is it because of the role playing experience? Is it because of the rules itself? Is you know what I mean? So
Can I offer something?
yeah.
There is a very well-known MMORPG that starts with W and
yeah,
takes
actually,
way
you
too
can say
much of
that.
my
You can
Say
time.
say
it.
it.
We're not
Okay,
affiliated.
Yeah,
World of Warcraft.
yeah.
So what is the win or lose there?
Yeah.
Like you win
You beat the
because I
bad
mean you
guy
can't.
at the end of the story.
That's very meta. You're thinking from a meta perspective of overall, you don't really lose because you respawn. But if
Mhm.
you're trying to beat a dungeon and
Okay, but sure.
you
But
wipe, then
but
you lost.
the dungeons never stop, and also you could choose that you're just gonna take the whole dungeon thing out of it, and I'm just gonna farm my little area and
True,
stay in my
very
little
true.
area, and now I want to go
So
play again.
so
No.
that's
Okay, but here's my thing, and at the risk of, I'm not, I actually believe that, you know, I today I can say that I'm going to stop using the idea of is this a game or not based on what Mr. Harper correctly mentioned earlier. But the fact is though that when you think about, and let me, at the risk of maybe getting a little too deep here, but if you think about game theory, is somebody trying to get something
mhm,
that someone else is also trying to get. Those things are in contention. One of them is getting it, the other one is not. You have a
Mhm.
competition, right? A game,
Mhm.
game theory, if you will, even for those out there who study that. So in that regard, I think that the only argument that we're trying to deconstruct here through our little chat is, does the term game, or should the term game apply or not? I think we have discovered through this argument back and forth that it does apply, because I don't actually disagree with anything Savi said or Ghost said or whatever. I think, however, that understanding the difference in structures could be useful. Understanding the difference between a more traditional experience, traditional, let's not even call it that, but an experience more like
Maybe.
fifth edition, Pathfinder, blah blah blah, and being able to distinguish what makes that different from an experience like something that is powered by the apocalypse or so on and so forth, may be ideal for
mhm.
people to understand the hobby and for people to understand what kind of experience they want to get into, because
So
that way they'll expand their horizons. Maybe, I don't know.
so before I get into Mr. Harper's comments that he put in there, so if basically what we're trying to say is play different games, people. play different games so you can have all these different experiences and you can come up with your own opinions. That's all we're trying to say.
And come
Because
into our server and tell us how we're wrong because we love it and we learn a ton from it. We
so
do.
Mr. Harper said, in a board game, what we imagine about the fictional situation doesn't affect the outcome of the game's systems. In RPG, it does. So yes and no, because that's my answer to everything.
He did the yes and no. Did you just do a yes and no to Mr. Harper? Oh my God! By the way, we're fanboying here, so we're yeah
Yes, you are. You are. So
yeah we're totally fanboying.
so yes, there are games, there are board games that the fictional doesn't really matter at all. But there are games, especially ones created by Mr. Ryan Lockhart, Red Raven Games. His games have they are very very deep mechanically, but they are also story based. There is an underlying story, an actual campaign that you play through as a board game, right?
Does
I
it
think
does the fiction, however, does what happened fictionally affect
yes,
the outcome? Oh, okay.
because as the story progresses, your character is affected in certain ways. They get either personalities or they get boost in stats, and they because of the decisions they make during the game, right? So it will never be like an RPG. It will never be. Yeah, he says then it's an RPG. Yes, so today we're seeing a lot of board games that are blending or blurring, not blending, blurring the line between RPGs and board games. Seventh
Alice is
Continent.
missing.
What?
Alice is missing,
Alice is Missing. That is
which is
perfect.
incredible.
Is an incredible game. It's technically an RPG, but it's not because it has a defined beginning and a defined end, and you're done. You don't play the game anymore. That's it. So, but yeah, but there's a lot of games out there. Seventh Continent is another board game where all your choices. It's a resource management, but it's also story based, right? So and that's my thing. So a what we as technology evolves, as the mind evolves, and how we look at things, and how we game theory, and how we design things, keeps we design things like we design things. I don't know, like
Okay,
how.
you Mr. Designer person, you.
So yeah, so as designers design things, things are going to change, and what constitutes a game. So that's what I'm saying. Like right now, you cannot compare a game, or I'm not saying you can't. You should. You can. Whatever. But I would not personally, in my opinion, I would not compare a game like Gloomhaven with Monopoly, because the experience is so different that they are
I
games. They are both games. There is a win
No,
or
they're
lose.
games, but
There are rules.
shouldn't, okay, so my question is, shouldn't the consumer, shouldn't the person who's going to consume this
Mhm.
product, shouldn't they have a better idea of what it is that they're consuming before they purchase?
the argument to your refrain.
Mhm.
It's that there is there are subgenres of games. You go on drive through or you go on
Mhm.
itch.io. I mean,
Hey, choose your own adventure books.
it's there's subgenres like, and we already created the subgenre where we refer to PBTA, Cortex, etc. as narrative games, like narrative
Yeah.
RPGs versus mechanical RPGs. Is like I see that all the time. I see it in the corner of the internet
Yeah.
that is TTRPG. Like they've created the subgenre.
So, I
So
I
games,
I still, okay, anyway,
RPGs, mechanical, narrative, other.
well, I don't know. Anyway, I think, you know, I'll do my takeaways now because we're already nearing an hour. So I'll do my takeaways, and then my main takeaways from this experience is, first of all, I've learned that definitions are hard. Defining things is difficult. Yeah, today I've learned. I've also learned today through this dialogue that it's very important that we are very careful with the way that we use certain terms because we don't know when those terms
yeah. Yeah.
may be affecting, particularly when we were talking about whether something is a game or not. The idea of saying, "Oh, but it's not a game," could at some point not be fair to some of the people that work very hard in them, and they actually do rightfully consider them to be so. So we have to be very careful with that. And the third thing I learned is that when it comes to our hobby, there is clearly a difference from the person who is new to it to the person that has been it for ages. And that will probably determine how flexible they are to experiencing different things. But when you're new, there could be a thing where you experience this one thing and then you think that everything is that
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
without knowing that there
question,
are other things.
whenever I run my Brindlewood Bay game on Thursday or on Tuesdays, he asks me, "How's your D&D stuff going?"
Right.
Not D&D, but he
Just,
like, but
just-
basically it is. It's like you don't know what you're talking about.
But like right now, like I remember I played Fate. I played Fate with a group, and there were people in that group that had never experienced an RPG, right? And we played Fate, and they had a specific experience. I am absolutely certain that these people are not going to play again because they told me. But the fact is that they were later talking about these same people. We were talking with another group of people, and then D&D came up, and and then these people were like, "Oh, that you can also do. You have systems that are like that. You have things that are, and then suddenly their world went like, right,
yeah.
regarding what could be
Mhm, mhm,
possible.
mhm.
So I just think that definitions are hard, but some part of me, I guess, maybe ideally speaking, would like for it to be a bit more clear. Uh, I don't know whether it's necessary or not. Maybe it's because of the time that I've played already, but I myself have found that now I'm transitioning from one to the other, and maybe that's where the
And
questioning kind of came
that's
from.
and that's fine. That's totally fine. And my stance on that is just it's my opinion. I'm take no hard feelings on that, of course, because people can play whatever. I actually encourage people to play a lot of games. I incline to have all these different experiences. The only thing I would suggest is, as I keep telling you guys, it's all about the expectations. To set up your expectations up front, and that will let people know what it is that you are going to play, how you're going to play, what it is you're going to play, how the game's going to go, the session, whatever. And that will just to have everybody in the same page. And once you have that set up, no game is wrong. No game is wrong to play. No way of playing is wrong. And because it's everybody's on the same page, everybody's going to have fun. The only time a game is not fun or a table is not having fun is when somebody in the group gets out of those expectations and plays something else. That
Totally.
is when everything is gonna go
Or
off the rails.
or somebody in the group had the wrong expectations, which means they're the only one who's not playing to the expectations that they had,
And
and
everybody
then
else is.
and
Yeah.
everybody else is playing outside of those expectations, and then you're like, what is happening right now? I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So Mr. Harper
Uh,
did have a comment in there. He said it's funny. Heavy metal fans will never agree about what that is. It's the same for games. Descriptive rather than prescriptive explanations seem better. Yes.
I like that.
Narrative,
I like that.
mechanical,
Never mechanical.
other,
What is that? What is that? You know what I mean?
I like that.
narrative. You
Um,
know, it is what it is.
It
Not
is what it is.
everybody, narrative game fans will never agree about what that is exactly. It's
Yeah.
the same for all RPGs.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the good news
Reskinning
is
that.
that the the questions and the dialogue that comes with it can only help enhance what we do. This is why we do what we do, to talk about
Yes.
these things and to
Yes.
learn from each other and to share into something we love and we hope other people will love as well.
Yes.
And we continue to do so. I will certainly take to heart everything that's been spoken of today. However, I will also report on how it goes my upcoming fifth edition game. Uh, and because it's a big deal, right? Like
Traitor.
I'm going from. I know I'm a trader. I'm sorry, but I have experience. I've been playing Fate and Friends, as I call them, Fate and Friends, for many years now, and I think it's about time that I
Mm.
kind of start experiencing these other things, because what I'm seeing from them, especially what I've seen from these other titles like Savage Worlds, Everywhen, Barbarians of Lemuria, for those of you who are unfamiliar, games like Fifth Edition, whatever. I think there's a lot out there that I wasn't completely aware of, could be amazing for me. So I hope it does turn out to be that
So
case.
As
it is.
long as you're playing a bard, I'll allow it.
I'm
Remember, you
playing
have
a
to seduce
Dragonborn
everything.
sorcerer, I think. I
Yeah,
know.
sure,
I'm
so
sorry.
yeah. So yeah, so it's one of those things like whenever you play a game and then you go and play other games and then you come back to that first one you played, you see it in
Like,
a
oh yeah,
whole different
no.
light. You see it in a
Yeah.
whole different light, and that's what's happening to me now that I played, fourth edition. I play all these, Savage Worlds, Fate, played PBTA, played ICRPG. For a long time, I played ICRPG. Totally recommended, no affiliation. And
No
then
affiliation, regrettably, because we love Hank.
yeah, we love Hank. And a lot of his philosophy actually got ingrained in me because I agreed with a lot of it. And then I discovered Cortex, and it changed a little bit of that mindset, right? But then now that I know Cortex and I know it inside and out, and I've played it, I love it. Going back to reading, I'm reading ICRPG again, and it's just showing me a lot of the nuances that I kind of missed the first time, especially because ICRPG is very generic in the sense that it can be or narrative or hey, going throwing that word out there again, or as narrative or as mechanical as you want it to be. And then also reading the Free League games. Games are
Fria
they're
Ligan.
Free League or Free League.
Love it.
They're
I don't even know how you spell that like correctly as
I
Fria
don't know.
Ligan.
I don't know.
Fria
I
Ligan.
don't even know if that's how you say it.
I don't even know. Free League. Free League.
Free League, but yeah. So their games are amazing. It's just even reading these games. Yes, Mr. Harper, even your game, Blades in the Dark, I do
Oh,
have it.
it's brilliant.
And it's just
Brilliant.
some of the mechanics.
Absolutely.
I love them, and I bring those like I try to bring those into or not the mechanics, but at least the feeling, the experience into my own games to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
try to use them to some extent. So
Absolutely.
it's I don't even know where I was going with this. The point is that when
It's
you
okay. It sounded pretty. It sounded
I know, right?
amazing. Yeah, so I'm
So,
enthralled here. It's
yeah.
amazing.
So the point is just to play games
Play games.
and I
Have
see it
fun.
and I see it on the Twitters as well with a lot of people recommending, hey, there's not I hate people when they associate tabletop RPGs with just D&D and blah blah blah, and I'm like, hey, is that if that's what they want to do, then
Say
let
la
them.
vie.
They love
It's the
5e,
way
it's
of
fine.
the world right
And then it's
now.
going to be 15, 20 years from now, and then the new generation is going to be, oh my god, I love 9th edition, and then we're going to be complaining, oh
Oh,
my god, 5th edition is the
that's
best
not
one.
where I was seeing that going. I thought you were gonna be like, oh my gosh, y'all should hear about this PBTA
No, that's what I'm saying. No,
game.
PBTA
It's
will
like,
never die. PBTA will never die as long as
And
there are.
but
and actually, for the record, for the people out there, please, we've thrown the word PBTA around. We are aware that PBTA is not a
It's
genre.
not a
It is
genre,
a.
but
Go read the letter. Some beautiful letter that was written about this, right? Beautiful letter that explains what Powered by the Apocalypse actually means,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
more
yeah.
about about the intellectual property
Yeah,
and all of that stuff. But so we get it. It's just that it's much easier for us to say PBTA, I guess, to encompass those games that follow
those
a
experiences
certain.
because they're all experiences.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we apologize to all of you who may say, "Oh, these heretics saying that PBTA is a genre." We know
Yeah,
it's not.
it's
We
not a
get
genre.
it.
Yeah. So,
It's-
but
we
yeah,
get it.
so years down the line, so it's like the people that have been playing since the 80s. They think the first edition of D&D is the best one, the original AD&D, whatever.
And all games should be like it.
And all games have their fans. We have our games. I don't love all games, right? But I'll play any game. I'll do that. I'm open to playing any game.
Except Burning Wheel, because nobody can play Burning Wheel ever.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I wish I could play Burning Wheel one
Or
day.
GURPS, but yeah.
Or
So,
GURPS.
but kidding, but kidding. But yeah, if somebody calls me to sit down, hey, you want to play a game? If I have time, then I'll play it. And because I want to see what it is, and I ask. So if you're on the Twitters and you see coming from us, that's me. That's either asking questions or commenting or liking or that kind of stuff because
Or disagreeing with
or
some.
disagreeing with people because I love to do that.
We
Um,
love disagreeing. That's how we learn.
yes, because
That's how we grow.
I want to see what the person's or the person speaking or writing, what their point of view is, what makes you have that decision or think about it that way, and trying to get them to not see my point of view. Heck no, I don't know anything, but trying to with my experience, trying to expand their knowledge a little bit and say, hey, maybe, hey, I don't have to agree with you, but I can respect and I can see your point of view. And that's what we want to do with this. Even just us three, we know each other. So if you see us like, yelling at each other and whatever, it's because we know each other very well. And
I am today a much better person by the amount of times that Ghost has proven me wrong. So this is not new. It's
So I
lovely.
just I have already, and I told you message copied on my phone, so that way I can just paste it in there and I don't have to write it every time I told him I
Yeah,
told you so. So
yeah, I told you so. Anyways, thank you. By the way, I want to throw something out there before we go. This is not
Mhm.
advertising. God, it's really not. I just think it's a brilliant game.
It is
I
advertising. Do
think
it.
it's okay. Fine, we're not affiliated, however,
No,
but
no, we're
but
not. No, we're not.
darn it, go check out the new Iron Sworn
Yes, I
Kickstarter.
backed it.
It's launched. Oh
I
my God, this is gonna be the greatest thing like in a long while.
Yes, I backed it
Starforged
already.
one.
Yeah,
Star
Iron Sworn
Force. Oh,
Starforged.
oh my God, it's so
The
beautiful.
first Iron Sworn. If you haven't checked it out, the first Iron
Mm.
Sworn and
Yeah.
Delve, its expansion. These are masterpieces, and the new one's out.
Yes.
Starforged, and it's sci-fi,
So
and you can use it just like you could use and you can use Iron Sworn to also, besides its own included setting, you can use it to
yeah,
play,
yeah. Star Force is
any
gonna be the
kind of
same
low
theme, but for
fantasy.
sci-fi stuff.
You
Yeah.
can even bring it a little bit into high fantasy, just
Yeah.
changing a couple of things around. But now you can also do that with sci-fi without having to jump too much. You
Yeah.
can do it with sci-fi and modern
And
and
to
all
be
sorts of.
honest, the artist, I think it's John Meehan. I think that's his name. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize very, very, very much. But his art, all the art in the game is his, except a couple of things. But most of it, it's his. Even the cover and everything. It's a beautiful, beautiful game. I give him props for that, and just giving credit where credit is due.
Yep.
But yeah, and Mr.
So
Harper,
go
Mr.
check
Harper
it out.
agrees. Mr. Harper agrees that Star Force is really good. It
Absolutely
is.
brilliant.
It's such a really really good game.
Yeah,
Uh,
so go check it out.
yep.
So go check it out. Give that and give a look to everything that's out there. Don't pay
At least the
attention
stuff
to
that
our
we
little
mentioned.
ramblings regarding
No,
whether
at
it's a
least the
game or
stuff that
not.
at least the stuff that we mentioned. So that way you can prove us wrong, and you can
Yeah,
tell us no, you
absolutely,
guys suck because
absolutely.
X Y Z. So
Uh, yep. Go
yeah,
ahead and join our Discord. We have games going on all the time. I think now we have a little too many games going on.
we have
We have an
way too
upcoming Star Trek. I think one of our friends is playing Star Trek. Is running Star Trek.
many. Yeah.
Yeah,
Something
We'll
there's a
say
Adventures.
couple of
say
guys
bye
who want to
to
run Star Trek,
Mr.
Yeah.
Harper. Thank you
Alien.
for hanging out.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you so much. Thank you so much. So have yourselves a majestic,
yeah.
wonderful, brilliant rest of the evening for those of you for whom it's evening or whatever time of day. Have yourselves a great, great game. Have a great
Yeah.
game.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye bye.